away. As the life support systems beeped their last warnings, the alien child Murloc cried out in terror while his family's spacecraft disintegrated around them. The life support was failing, and his father Zoran was mortally injured, his lifeblood spreading across the cabin floor. Around them, other civilizations turned their backs, none heeding their desperate pleas for help. It was the merciless insectoid Krill THX soldiers who had devastated Merle's homeworld, obliterating cities and massacring civilians. Murloc, along with his parents Zoran and Irina, had narrowly escaped the flaming wreckage of their planet in a small shuttle. Unfortunately, during their harrowing escape, Zoran had been struck by shrapnel, severely wounding him. Now they drifted aimlessly through space, their air supply dwindling as Zoran's condition worsened. Despite their distress calls, no one responded, until a KAC warship detected their signal. The insectoids, intent on eradicating any survivors, were closing in to finish their deadly task. "Help us, anyone, please!" Irina pleaded over the communication system, her voice soaked with desperation. Nearby alien ships, the pacifistic Lean, the avaricious Auric, and the indifferent Hey Binar, all deactivated their communications and fled the scene. It was then that a new species, the humans, answered the distress call. Though their approaching vessel was small and modestly armed, it was their only hope. The humans were still 30 minutes away. Would they arrive in time to make a difference? The humans. "Zorian shuttle, this is Captain Ames of the Terra Nova. We're coming in hot. Hold tight." The voice was resolute, tinged with urgency. Unlike the distant and detached responses from the Galactic Council, the human tone was decisive and immediate. The Krill THX warship had opened fire just as the Zorian shuttle's shields gave out. With mere minutes before total collapse, Murloc and his family could only hope that the humans would reach them in time. Irina and Murloc huddled together, surrounded by the encroaching shadow of despair, as Zoran's breathing grew more labored. As the KAC warship prepared to deliver its final strike, the human ship Terra Nova appeared on the horizon. It was smaller than the Council ships, but it moved with a boldness that belied its size. The crew of the Terra Nova initiated evasive maneuvers to intercept the incoming fire, effectively drawing the attention of the insectoid ship. "Hold on, Zorian family. We're deploying our shields to cover your shuttle," Captain Ames announced as the human ship aligned itself between the warship and the shuttle. The Terra Nova's shields flared brightly, absorbing the blasts that would have otherwise been fatal for the Zorians. Irina, gripping Murloc close, felt a surge of relief mixed with disbelief. The humans, a species they knew nothing about, were risking everything to save them. "Thank you," she breathed into the comm, her voice cracking with emotion. "You're risking so much for us." "It's what we do," came the reply, almost casual but deeply sincere. "No one gets left behind in space. Not if we can help it." As the Terra Nova continued its defensive maneuvers, more human ships appeared, forming a protective barrier around the Zorian shuttle. Despite their smaller size and lighter armaments, the human fleet coordinated their efforts with precision, managing to hold off the KAC warship long enough for additional Galactic Council reinforcements to reconsider their stance and join the fray, influenced by the humans' unexpected bravery. Murloc, peering out from his mother's embrace, watched in awe as these brave new allies, humans, fought valiantly against the overwhelming odds. In that moment, a spark of hope was rekindled within him, fueled by the courage of a distant species that had come to their rescue when all seemed lost. KAC warship's hull as the Resolve's missiles found their mark. The retaliatory fire from the Resolve's beam weapons cut through the void, targeting critical systems and causing secondary explosions within the enemy ship. Amidst the chaos, the Resolve held its course, steady and unyielding. On board the Zorian shuttle, Irina held Murloc close, her heart pounding as she watched the scene unfold through the viewport. The once menacing KAC warship was now faltering under the relentless assault from the Resolve. Her grip tightened around her son, her whispers of reassurance mingling with the distant sounds of battle. Captain Reynolds watched intently from the bridge of the Resolve, his crew working with precision and determination. "Keep the pressure on. Focus fire on their propulsion systems," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of their critical mission. The crew responded instantly, adjusting their fire as the Resolve maneuvered for a better angle. The Resolve's advanced shields glowed under the continuous onslaught, each impact a testament to human engineering and resolve. Captain Reynolds's gaze remained fixed on the tactical display, monitoring the effectiveness of each strike. "Engineering, "Reroute power to shields and weapons. We need to maintain our advantage," he ordered, his deep voice resonant over the ship's comm system. The engineering team quickly complied, their actions ensuring the Resolve could sustain its protective stance while maximizing its offensive capabilities. As the Resolve continued to batter the KAC warship, the crew aboard the Zorian shuttle felt a surge of hope. Arena looked at her son, his wide eyes reflecting the flashes of light from the ongoing battle. "The humans are fighting for us, Murloc," she said, her voice a mix of awe and gratitude. Captain Reynolds gave another firm command. "Prepare to extend our shields around the Zorian shuttle as soon as we're in range. We're not letting anyone fall on our watch." With the Resolve's shields now partially enveloping the Zorian shuttle, they provided a much-needed barrier against any further attacks. The human vessel's relentless pursuit and strategic firepower slowly turned the tide, proving that even in the vastness of space, courage and resolve could bridge the gap between the most distant of species. "Zorian family immediately, and stabilize their environment the moment they're aboard," Captain Reynolds directed sharply, a sense of urgency pervading his tone. On the bridge, crew members moved with swift precision, their fingers gliding over controls as they prepared the transport. The Resolve's advanced systems honed in on the coordinates of the Zorian shuttle, locking onto the life signs within. Murloc, huddled close to his mother in the failing shuttle, watched through the window as the Resolve engaged the KAC warship with a ferocity and precision that seemed almost beyond belief. He felt his mother's embrace tighten around him, her body shaking as she fought back despair. Meanwhile, Arena, with tears blurring her vision, looked down at Zoran, whispering words of love and encouragement. Despite the dire circumstances, her voice was steady, a stark contrast to the chaotic ballet of starships outside. Back on the Resolve, Captain Reynolds kept his eyes fixed on the tactical displays, monitoring every fluctuation in the shuttle's vital signs. "Initiate the transport sequence now and bring them directly to Med Bay," he commanded, his voice reflecting both command and concern. The transport beam activated, enveloping Murloc, Arena, and Zoran in a soft glow. Within moments, they were transported from the cold, dying shuttle to the warm, brightly lit confines of the Resolve's medical bay. Medical staff rushed to attend to them, particularly Zoran, whose condition was the most critical. As the medical team worked tirelessly, Captain Reynolds received updates on the rescue. Though his focus remained on the battle outside, part of his mind was with the Zorian family, hoping that their intervention had come in time. The Resolve continued its strategic maneuvers around the KAC warship, each move calculated to keep the enemy at bay while minimizing risk to the ship and its newly rescued passengers. The human vessel's weapons continued to fire in controlled bursts, targeting vulnerabilities and keeping the insectoid ship on the defensive. Through it all, Murloc watched from the safety of the med bay, his young mind struggling to comprehend the bravery and kindness of these strangers from another world. His heart filled with a mix of fear, awe, and profound gratitude. He could feel the calm efficiency and concern emanating from the human crew. Arena, though overwhelmed by the change in their circumstances, squeezed Murloc's hand reassuringly, whispering that they were safe now, as she watched the medical team work fervently to stabilize Zoran. The biobed hummed and whirred as it analyzed Zoran's condition, displaying vital stats and injury details that guided the medical team in their urgent care. They administered advanced healing agents and life support measures, their actions synchronized and methodical. Captain Reynolds stood at the doorway of the medical bay, observing the scene. His decision to bring the Zorian family aboard might have raised eyebrows among his crew, but he watched with a firm sense of vindication as the medical team fought to save their lives. It was a risk he knew, but one worth taking. Meanwhile, Murloc, amidst his awe of the human technology, began to realize the gravity of their rescue. The sterile, high-tech environment of the Resolve was a stark contrast to the desperate, deteriorating conditions of their shuttle. Here, in the buzzing efficiency of the medical bay, hope was tangible. As Zoran's condition began to stabilize, thanks to the swift intervention, Arena allowed herself a moment of relief, her gaze meeting Captain Reynolds at the doorway. Her eyes conveyed the depth of her gratitude without words. Captain Reynolds nodded slightly, acknowledging her silent thanks before turning back to coordinate the ongoing engagement with the KAC warship. He issued commands with a renewed focus, knowing that the lives they had just saved added greater weight to their mission. His crew responded with renewed vigor, rallying around the decision to protect their unexpected guests. Murloc, now slightly less frightened, watched everything with a mix of curiosity and admiration. The resolve and compassion of the humans had not just saved his family, but it also given him a new perspective on hope and kindness across the vastness of space. "In good hands now," she said, as her instruments closed the wounds and administered advanced healing compounds. Murloc, seeing the care with which the human team treated his father, felt a profound relief wash over him. As the team continued their precise and rapid efforts, Captain Reynolds remained in the medical bay, his presence reassuring. He watched the medical team work, their efficiency a clear testament to their training and humanity's commitment to helping others, regardless of their origin. Murloc held his mother's hand tighter, feeling the strength of the human resolve that surrounded them. Irina, though still anxious for Zoran, allowed herself a moment to relax, her gaze meeting Captain Reynolds's. It was clear that their plight had moved him deeply, prompting him to act not just as a military officer, but as a guardian of life. "You're not alone anymore," Captain Reynolds said, addressing both Murloc and Irina with a gentle firmness. "We'll see this through together. Let's focus on getting Zoran back on his feet." The captain's words, simple yet filled with conviction, bolstered Murloc's newfound hope. Around them, the medical bay buzzed not just with the sound of medical devices, but with the palpable sense of a crew united by a common purpose. This synergy was new to Murloc, who had grown up hearing tales of distant and indifferent species, each looking out only for themselves. Watching the humans, Murloc's view of the universe expanded. He saw potential not just for survival, but for alliances built on mutual respect and compassion. Even as the Resolve continued to hold off the KAC warship, the actions inside the medical bay spoke louder than the ongoing conflict outside. Here, in this room, life was cherished and fiercely protected. As Zoran's condition stabilized, thanks to the swift and competent care of the human medical team, Murloc felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to imagine a future, one that perhaps could include these brave new friends who had come to their rescue in their darkest hour, saying, "Leave no one behind. We believe in helping others no matter where they come from. It's part of who we are." Murloc absorbed the captain's words, a mix of awe and curiosity lighting up his young face. He felt the warmth of Captain Reynolds' hand on his shoulder, a comforting weight that seemed to ground him in the midst of the swirling chaos of recent events. "We're here for you and your family, Murloc," Captain Reynolds continued, his voice firm yet gentle. "You've been through a lot, and we'll do everything we can to make you feel at home while you recover." Irina, her eyes still moist from tears of relief, looked up at Captain Reynolds with profound gratitude. "Thank you," she repeated, her voice steadier now, "for saving my husband, for saving us all." Captain Reynolds nodded, understanding the depth of her thanks. He stood looking over at the medical team who were still busy ensuring Zoran's comfort and recovery. "Your husband fought hard to stay with you. He's very strong," he said, glancing back at Zoran's resting form. As the captain turned to leave, he paused and looked back at Murloc and Irina. "If there's anything else you need, don't hesitate to ask. My crew and I are here to help." With that, he walked out of the medical bay, leaving the family to absorb the reality of their rescue and the unexpected sanctuary they had found among the stars. Murloc watched him go, a sense of security slowly replacing the fear that had gripped him since their escape. In this strange, new environment, surrounded by the hum of advanced technology and the quiet competence of the human crew, Murloc felt a stirring of hope, not just for recovery, but for a new chapter in his life, one filled with the promise of kindness and solidarity across the stars. "I'm Murloc," he said warmly. "Remember, you're not alone anymore. We're all in this together now." Murloc clung to Captain Reynolds for a moment, the comfort of the embrace cutting through the lingering fears and uncertainties of their ordeal. As he stepped back, his eyes still wet with tears, he looked up at the captain with a new sense of admiration and hope. "You really mean that, don't you?" Murloc asked, his voice still tinged with awe. "Every word," Captain Reynolds affirmed with a nod. "It's not just about doing what's easy. It's about doing what's right, even when the stakes are high. That's how we make the universe a better place, for everyone." Murloc nodded, the profoundness of the captain's words sinking in. It was a lesson he knew he would carry with him forever, a stark contrast to the harsh lessons of survival he had learned on his homeworld. Irina, watching the exchange, felt her heart swell with gratitude. She reached out, taking Captain Reynolds' hand and squeezing it tightly. "Your courage and compassion have given us a second chance," she said, her voice steadier than it had been since their nightmare began. "We will never forget this." Captain Reynolds smiled, a look of quiet satisfaction in his eyes as he returned the squeeze. "We're just glad we could be there for you," he replied. As the captain left the medical bay, Murloc and Irina remained by Zoran's side, watching him breathe more easily now in his deep healing sleep. The Resolve's hum and the soft beeping of the biobed were comforting in their consistency, a reminder of the safety and security that had enveloped them since their rescue. In that moment, the galaxy did indeed seem a little less cold and unforgiving, thanks to the humans who had dared to stand up against darkness to bring light. Murloc felt a renewed sense of possibility for the future, inspired by the humanity he had experienced firsthand, faces reflecting a mixture of guilt and apprehension. "I stand before you to challenge the decision to ignore the distress call from the Zorian family," Captain Reynolds continued, his tone unyielding. "It is not merely a question of interstellar politics or strategic advantage. It is a question of moral responsibility and compassion." He paused, allowing his words to resonate in the council chamber. "We, as members of this galactic community, possess the capability to assist those in need. Yet when given the opportunity to act, too many chose to look away. We must ask ourselves, what kind of galaxy do we want to live in? One that values life or one that dismisses it based on convenience or fear?" The silence that followed was palpable. Captain Reynolds stood firm, his gaze sweeping across the room, meeting the eyes of each council member. The humans on board the Resolve did not hesitate. We acted, not because it was convenient, but because it was right. The Zorian family is now safe because we chose to intervene. He let his gaze linger on the council members, his expression serious but not accusatory. "I urge you, esteemed members, to reconsider your stance on such matters. Let us not be divided by fear or self-interest, but let us unite in our shared commitment to the sanctity of life across all species." Captain Reynolds stepped back, his piece said, the weight of his message hanging in the air. He had not come to provoke a confrontation, but to provoke thought, to stir the conscience of the Galactic Council. As he exited the chamber, the murmurs began, the seeds of change possibly taking root. Back on the Resolve, Murloc watched through a transmission screen, his heart swelling with pride and admiration for the captain who had become not just their rescuer, but their champion. This moment solidified his belief in the goodness that still existed in the galaxy, a goodness that he had witnessed firsthand from the humans who had risked everything to save his family. To turn a blind eye to a plea for help. Your fears justified your inaction, but that does not make it right. The council member faltered under Reynolds' intense scrutiny, unable to respond. The chamber fell silent once more, the weight of the captain's words settling over the assembly like a thick fog. Captain Reynolds continued, his voice now steady but forceful. "Fear is a powerful motivator, yes, but it should not dictate our moral compass. We are endowed with power, resources, and influence. If we cannot use these to uphold the fundamental values of compassion and solidarity, then we fail not only those in immediate danger but ourselves and future generations." He scanned the room, his gaze unwavering. "I stand before you today because the Zorian family did not perish. They survived because my crew and I made a different choice. We chose action over inaction, compassion over indifference. We chose to extend our hand when others pulled theirs away." Some council members nodded, acknowledging the truth in his words, while others remained uncomfortable, their eyes averted. Captain Reynolds took a deep breath, his posture relaxed slightly, indicating that his address was nearing its end. "As members of the Galactic Council, you bear a responsibility that extends beyond the borders of your own systems. It is not just about managing crises, it's about preventing them when possible and intervening when necessary. Let this incident serve as a reminder of the power and responsibility you hold. Let it remind you that leadership is not just strategic, but profoundly moral." With that, Captain Reynolds concluded his speech, the echoes of his challenge lingering in the hushed chamber. He turned and walked out, leaving the council members to their thoughts and the repercussions of his words. As the door closed behind him, whispers resumed, this time with a sense of urgency. It was clear that his message had struck a chord, perhaps igniting a spark of change in the Galactic Council's approach to crises and their role in the broader cosmos. Meanwhile, on the Resolve, Murloc watched with growing respect and a deep sense of security, comforted by the knowledge that their plight had not only been alleviated, but had also ignited a crucial debate among the galaxy's leaders. His family's ordeal had sparked a discussion that might, hopefully, lead to a more compassionate and proactive Galactic Council. Voice firm and resolute. "We must remember our foundational mission. to serve as guardians for those who cannot defend themselves across all stars and systems. As the sentiment began to shift in the chamber, another council member stood up, adding their voice to the growing consensus. It is easy to make decisions when there are no risks involved, but the true measure of our council's worth is how we respond when the stakes are high and the decisions tough. We must not allow fear to paralyze our capacity for kindness and action. The room filled with murmurs of agreement and thoughtful nods. The atmosphere slowly transformed as perspective shifted and determination grew. Captain Reynolds watched the change unfold, his expression one of cautious optimism. His words had ignited a spark, challenging the council to reflect on their responsibilities and the moral imperatives of their positions. Thank you, Captain Reynolds, for reminding us of our duty. The chairperson of the council finally spoke, their voice clear and commanding. This council was established to be a beacon of hope and a shield for the defenseless. We must not falter in that mission. Captain Reynolds nodded in acknowledgement, his mission in addressing the council now complete. I trust that going forward, the council will remember this day and the decisions that we are called to make. It's about more than politics. It's about the lives we vow to protect and the future we hope to build. With a respectful nod, he turned and exited the chamber, leaving behind a council now engaged in fervent discussion about ways to implement stronger measures for interstellar aid and protection. Back on the Resolve, the crew and the Zorian family watched the end of the transmission, their faces reflecting a mix of relief and hope. Murloc, looking up at his parents, saw in them a new peace, a weight lifted by the promise of a future safeguarded by those once thought indifferent. Looks like you really did change their minds, Murloc said to the screen, his voice filled with admiration and a newfound respect for the power of courageous leadership. Yes, his mother replied, her eyes on Captain Reynolds' retreating figure. Sometimes all it takes is one voice strong enough to speak up and remind others of who they are supposed to be. He was determined to share that lesson with everyone he could. He showed us that bravery isn't just about fighting. It's about making tough choices for the greater good. Murloc mused aloud, still fixated on the screen where Captain Reynolds had stood so boldly. Irina smiled gently at her son, pride evident in her eyes. Yes, and it's about standing up for others even when you stand alone, she added, reinforcing the captain's message. She wrapped her arms around Murloc, grateful for the safety and second chance they had been given. As the medical bay hummed quietly around them, Zoran, now steadily recovering, joined in the conversation. We've learned a great lesson today, he said, his voice still weak but filled with conviction. The actions of one person, one ship, can ripple across the galaxy and change many lives. Together the family watched the stars streak past the viewport, each lost in thoughts of the future. They talked about ways they could help bridge the gap between their people and the humans, inspired by the profound acts of kindness they had witnessed. The Resolve pushed forward through the cosmos, its crew busy at their stations, unaware of the profound impact their captain's actions had on the small family watching from the medical bay. But Murloc and his family knew. They had been touched by a profound force of good, and they felt an unspoken promise to pay forward the compassion they had received. As the light from distant stars illuminated their faces, Murloc felt a resolve of his own forming, fueled by the visions of unity and peace that now seemed possible. He knew the journey ahead would be long and filled with challenges, but he also knew that with courage and the support of newfound friends, anything was possible. One day I'll help others just like Captain Reynolds helped us, he vowed quietly to himself, his heart full of hope and a new sense of purpose. He vowed to carry those lessons with him for the rest of his days. Although the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, Murloc knew he would face them with the same bravery and determination that Captain Reynolds had shown. For he had seen the best of humanity, and he knew that together, they could build a better future for all the beings of the galaxy. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this tale and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. For every comment that includes 88, I will personally respond with a heart. Thank you for your time and support.